My name is Jeff Morgan, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I want to speak on a couple of issues right now with regard to conservatism in Texas. We have many conservatives that claim to be these wonderful, great conservatives, and I really don't think they understand how far off base they are, how they are misleading people, and how some of their so-called conservative actions are destroying families and creating bondage and other things for the people of Texas. I'm going to take what I consider to be probably the most egregious example right now, and this is going to be for House Joint Resolution 54 that is being introduced by Glen Rogers. Now, Glen Rogers, I've taken a look at his Facebook page. I've looked at some of his campaign stuff. This is not his first term in the House of Representatives. He appears to be a very great guy, very nice guy. He's a veterinarian, or I think he's a rancher, and I think his wife's a veterinarian. Maybe he also has a doctor in some type of veterinary medicine. But even though you may be a good person, even though you may have wonderful children and grandchildren, it does not mean that some of the stuff that you do in the legislature should immediately be blessed because you are a conservative. So Dr. Glen Rogers' joint resolution is as follows. This is the joint resolution proposing a constitutional amendment, of all things a constitutional amendment, requiring the payment of child support to be eligible to hold certain public elective offices. His resolution states, be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Texas, Section 1, Section 6, Article 3, Texas Constitution is amended to read as follows. Now, we already have part of this amendment in here. He's amending this article to the Constitution. Section 6 says to be eligible to be a candidate for or elected or appointed to the office of senator, a person must be a citizen of the United States. There's nothing wrong with that. At the time of the person's election or appointment, a qualified voter of this state, I don't have any problem with that, have been a resident of this state for the 5 years preceding the election or appointment, okay, have been a resident of the district of which the person would be a senator for the year preceding the election or appointment. Okay. Number 5 is be at least 26 years of age. And 6, this is the big proposal that Dr. Glen Rogers, the conservative Republican Christian, is putting forward. He must have paid all child support and payable by the person unless A, the person has made all due payments under a payment plan, or B, the child support due is contested or negotiated. And he also has down further in Section 2, Section 7, Article 3, the Texas Constitution is amended to read as follows, to be eligible to be a candidate for or elected or appointed to the office of a representative. So it's not just senators, it's also representatives. A person must be a citizen of the United States. Once again, that's not an issue. At the time of the person's election or appointment, a qualified voter of the state, have been a resident of the state for the 2 years preceding the election or appointment, have been a resident of the district for which the person would serve as a representative for the year preceding the election or appointment, be at least 21 years of age, and again, have paid all child support due and payable by the person unless, and here it becomes again, unless the person has made all payments under a payment plan or the child support due is being contested or negotiated. So here's a Christian conservative Republican asking for a constitutional amendment. He has never established that child support itself as constitutional in the least. Let's rephrase this question a little bit differently so that the issue at stake here will be a little bit clearer. So should a person be required to pay a state who has kidnapped his children, kicked the father out of the children's life or the mother out of the children's lives, should that person be required to pay the state to kidnap, to take away the child via a state actor like a judge or have any type of legislative decrees established that permit this to take place, why should a person who is in a position of whether he or she is unmarried or divorced, why should that person be forced to pay the state? And if the person is in arrearages to the state, that person cannot run either for House of Representatives or the Senate. I think that there's a couple of things here. First off, if you look at the numbers themselves, fathers are 684,986 of the cases that were looked at were non-custodial. And you have 51,000 mothers that are non-custodial. So you have a non-custodial parent paying child support. That factor is at least 12, 13, 14 to 1. There's a much greater chance that as a father, you will be in one of these situations and that you may not be able to pay child support. This, to me, on its face, seems to be discriminatory. It is not being applied equally to both sexes, to both genders. Our Texas Family Code says that custodial arrangements should be made without discrimination to either to gender or to marital status, and yet 684,986 fathers are non-custodials, 51,534 mothers are non-custodials. So this is what you're looking at right off the bat here. So to me, it seems to be discriminatory on the face. It's as if this conservative Christian Republican who's serving in the legislature right now, it's as if he has adopted a doctrine of feminism. We need to kick men out. If men are not paying, because the reality is that 15 men probably to every one mother is going to be paying child support. So there's a much greater chance that that person will be not eligible to run for a House a representative position or a senator position. But I also wonder, why is it just child support? For example, I mean, we have a chairperson of the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee, Victoria Niave. She owed the state of Texas $22,000, I believe, in back taxes for years. And she became the chair of the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee. She was not only elected, but she was appointed a chair. Now, maybe it got paid off in the interim after she was elected, but to the best of my knowledge, she had this debt hanging over her head to the state, but it wasn't child support. It wasn't child support, so we're not going to hold that against her. And I also wonder, I mean, so for example, if you are drunk driving and if you hit an innocent tree and if you hurt the innocent tree, why isn't that used against you? Because Victoria Niave, not only was she in debt to the state for back taxes that she owed for a number of years, but she did do just that. She got drunk, she hit an innocent tree that was standing there, and she was able to become later on appointed chair of the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee. And that just seems to be absolutely absurd. You know, for Democrats, some of these things are resumes and enhancers, but for conservatives, we're going to be really tough on all of these people and make sure that this doesn't happen. But the issue that I think is even deeper than that is that when I was at CPAC a few years ago, I met Richard Valdez. Now, Richard Valdez, people may not know who he is, but he was Mr. Call Screener for Mark Levin. You know, Mr. Call Screener, what do you think about this? Mr. Call Screener, Richard Valdez was the call screener for Mark Levin. And as we were talking with him about some of the issues pertaining to fatherlessness and other things pertaining to family law, he brought up the point to me, is child support constitutional? And we wanted to get him on the interview. We couldn't quite work it out to that point in time. But the issue was this: is child support constitutional? When the government decrees that an individual should be mandated an absent parent and just pay money, is that constitutional? Whose children are these? To put a person in a position where that person cannot be with a child, becomes a visitor to the child, and has to pay money for the kidnapping of his or her children, kidnapping or trafficking of his or her children by the state through a judge, through the legislature, who's also made these statutes and said, what a great job we're doing. Can we pat ourselves on the back? And now we have a conservative Christian saying that even though this is completely unconstitutional, we're going to have a constitutional amendment to bar these people from running for either representative or senator. This is simply an awful bill. And Dr. Rogers, I would love to talk with you about it. This is nothing personal. It's just that this is one of the most atrocious bills that I have seen in a long long time. And I've got a couple of other friends right now that I want to talk with before I comment on their bills. They want to have child support from conception. I understand what their rationale may be. Once again, going to look at an unconstitutional measure to help the state recoup its funds. The reality is child support, they say it's for the mother. Yes, that's part of the case, but it's really so that the state does not come out of pocket as well on some of the costs. Well, if the state were to get rid of no-fault divorce, unilateral no-fault divorce, and that you actually had to have a fault-based reason, or somebody abandoned a marriage, and therefore you actually assign child support because of abandonment issues, that's a completely different thing. The state has mandated into the Texas Family Code right now, unilateral no-fault divorce, divorce for any reason, divorce for no reason. You can make up a reason. You can lie about a reason, and a judge will divorce you and will also give you child support. What kind of nonsense is this? But this is what our conservative Republican representatives are proposing at this point. These are, and I hate to even use the term this way, these are god-awful bills. And but they're going to be, you know, they're freedom-loving people. They defend conservatism. They are Republicans. We don't need any more Republican bills like this. We actually need to talk about rebuilding the family, strengthening the family. One of the best things the Republicans could do, but they're afraid to do this, it's been on the platform for almost 20 years right now, the repeal of unilateral no-fault divorce. Well, it was no-fault divorce. I got it changed to unilateral no-fault divorce. That's been on the platform for, I think, almost 20 years. It's up there, and we pay lip service to it. Our Republicans are afraid to act according to conservative principles and are afraid to guard marriages and guard families. But they're not afraid to embrace feminism and to make sure that child support is applied from conception, or that if you are lacking in child support because of your children being kidnapped from you and the state makes you pay child support, we're not going to let you run for office. This is absolutely ludicrous and insane. Democrats, you don't have to propose any bills. Our conservative legislators will do enough to help you out. I know you're going to have your own crap out there, and there's a lot of it. In fact, the majority of it is pretty bad. But I guess you don't have to worry about all of the crap, because our own conservative Republicans are putting things out there for you to advance the cause of cultural Marxism, feminism, progressivism, to help destroy families. We need to actually talk with our legislators about this. Dr. Glen Rogers, please feel free to call me. I hope that you renege and say this was a mistake. I did not realize how bad it was. I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt right now. There's a couple of other people. One of them I consider a friend. And I was going to speak with him. I just couldn't do it last week. I'm hoping that he reaches out to me. There's another representative in the Collin County area that seems to be infected with feminism. I don't know what the deal is up there. But I hope you guys, you know who you are. I hope you reach out to me. Love to talk with you about this thing. These are atrocious bills. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt right now, and I'm hoping that you will pull these things and regain your constitutional Christian conservative orientation and put it into play when you write legislation. Thank you.